Who you say no to is just as important as who you say yes to and what you say yes and no to as you are shifting realities. Because as you will find in your quantum field, you're going to start to queue up different manifestations. New timelines are going to be accessible to you. And some of those timelines are going to lead to places that you are not actually interested in. But at first, you might be really excited just to have a new option, particularly if you've been waiting for a while. And this might blind you, and you might think, oh, I've been waiting for a job. You might have been unemployed for however long. And so then the first offer that comes to you, you're like, definitely, I'm going for it. Or you may have been single for a while and you start dating again, and the first match that you have, you're like dreaming of a future with them, right? It can be normal. And part of the reality shifting process is knowing what you're getting into and understanding that you actually have a lot of options, but they may come in at different time points that you're not expecting. And you never know what is around the corner. And the main message of this episode is to not settle and to really make sure that you are saying yes with a full body resonance or a deep feeling of F yes, or a deep centered knowing, an intuitive knowing, like I need to go this way. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to work out on paper, but you just know. You just know. And when you are in that vibration of alignment, that's when you're very in tune with carving out in your quantum field, in your auric field, right? Carving out space for the right lifelines, the right people, the right opportunities to attach to you and to come to you. And for some of you, you may struggle with this like me. I love to say yes to things. And especially if I haven't done it before and I'm trying it out for the first time, like I love novelty, not as much as I used to, and it doesn't impair my life, thankfully, but on the big 5 ocean scale, I rank very high as an openness. And so I'm very open to adventures. I'm very open to experiences, and particularly if I haven't done them before. And what can happen is that this can dilute the reality shifting process, because let's say you have 5 slots for new options to attach onto you in your field. And different people have different slots. I've talked about this before in other episodes. And it kind of depends on where you're at in your personal transformation process and your upgrade to quantum consciousness, because you need to be able to hold multiple worlds in your mind. And some people can only hold one, and that's okay. That's normal, coming from a binary society. And then as you start to expand and your consciousness expands, then you have the ability to shift into different worlds and hold those worlds in your mind relatively well preserved. There is some blending effect which occurs, which is normal, the bleed over effect. And so your level of expansion means that you're going to have a natural limitation at first. And I believe that if you're in human form with human working memory, especially if you are originating from a binary linear society, then this means that your cognition is kind of limited relative to where you could be reality shifting into in the future, where there is expanded working memory functions and upgraded cognition. through things like transhumanism, and not the scary conspiracy theory. Like, there's some weird propaganda anti-transhumanism that's twisted in a really bizarre way. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about robots taking over your soul, making you sick, and sending you to hell. Like, or the 5G towers mind controlling you. Like, no, 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 we're not going down those roads unless we have to, and maybe there's a good reason for it. But the transhumanism that I'm talking about is actually very, very different, and is actually already in existence, that if you're interested in that, you have to shift into. Anyway, so there are upgrades to the human experience, particularly to be able to support quantum living arrangements. But in lieu of that upgrade happening, you can only, traditionally, this is what people say, remember 7 digits at a time, right? So you literally have a limit, and that's just numbers. That's not even worlds. That's why phone numbers were like 7 digits long, because people could remember them. And anyway, so that's what they say. And that's a long time ago. I think that maybe things have improved, but I'm not quite certain. So you have limitations, and that's okay. And that means that your reality slots of the worlds that want to come and attach onto you, or that you want to shift into, it means that you can only really work with a couple at once. So you need to be very, very mindful about where you're headed and what the landscape is changing into and how it feels. And you need to have clear delineating checkpoints where you check in with yourself, and to make sure that it's not like a golden brick gilded road to hell, because often hell doesn't manifest itself initially as hell, but it starts to morph into that. It's the same reason that people stay in toxic relationships for a long time, because in the beginning, it didn't feel toxic, even though there were signals and signs, right? And your intuition will often tell you, your body will tell you, and it's up to you to actually listen. Your body will tell you that you're going to break up before your mind will. And it's interesting how many times people don't listen to their body. Your intuition will tell you if somebody is lying to you or cheating on you if you're in a monogamous arrangement. But then your mind will trick you into thinking that you're crazy or that you need to gaslight yourself. And this is why the shadow work journey is so important. So imagine that shifting into a reality is kind of like dating. You need to be able to figure out, is this really in alignment with my body's intelligence, with my intuition, with my energy? How does my energy feel? Am I walking into a land of zombies? Some people have a savior complex where they want to play a Jesus role. I don't mean that in a disparaging way. Some people actually really are looking for that. And so they're looking for the narratives to where they're like really, really the only one, which means that they're going into a hell-like existence, or they're going into darkness where they can be the soul light. And there's something about that experience that their soul signed up for. And that's okay. We need Jesuses in hell too. And so sometimes if you do have a narrative like that, where you want to be the king or the queen, then that means that by necessity, reality has to conform to you being inserted into a place where people are mostly asleep, or where they need a lot of your light and you're the sole source of healing. I, for one, believe that that is a consciousness trap for me, because I'm looking to be around other creators and other manifestors and other partners where we could have collaborations. And so I'm looking to be in a world where there are many highly accomplished, amazing people that have their own gifts and that are just as powerful and unique in their own ways. And we can sort of fan out in this grid-like fashion and manifest for the collective and do some really cool things. And so as a result, it's really important to understand where your end goal is and what it should look like, because when you start reality shifting, you're going to have many things come into your field as options. And if you're still doing shadow work, and many of us are, myself included, then the first things that try to anchor onto you might be another version of that toxic world or that toxic relationship. And so you don't want to fill up all of your limited slots with things that you've already done before. And very often, because of the chain of energy, this is how I see it, the chain of energy that follows you is everything that you have been manifesting, because you live in a linear existence. And so your experience is derived from memories if you're in human form. And so your life, your personality, your everything follows a trajectory from past, present, and future. This is the orientation of human cognition. And until you really start to upgrade it, and even then, you still have that, at least I do, thread of the linear existence. Even when you start tapping into the quantum realities in the quantum field, you're still bound by time. You know, like you still have to get to appointments. You've got to go to the doctor. You set a time. You're on a schedule. There's a calendar. There's a clock. And so by that logic, then you still maintain your memories, and the preservation of your identity through time stays with you. As a result, you have a chain of energy that you have previously cast out into the ether, into the quantum field, that has said, hey, come over here. Hey, I want this and I want that, I want this. And many of us don't clean up that energy band. And so as a result, we have a lot of different manifestations and designs and plans that are trying to come to us. And they come to us at different speeds because of the way everything is done, you know, and I don't have time to go into that. But you might have a manifestation from 5 years ago that is just coming to you tomorrow. Well, think about who you were 5 years ago and the level of consciousness and shadow work that you had attained by that point when you sent up that beacon of, hey, come to me. Or you went out to try to find it and you finally latched onto it. And now the worlds are configuring and reconfiguring to attach that material plane of existence to you, so you can glide into it regardless of whether or not your perceptual system registers any subtle changes that you've reality shifted. And it's like it unfolds right before your eyes. And then if you don't say no to that and you allow it to happen, it's going to be where you were at 5 years ago. To a degree, it's a little more complicated, but this is what I've observed, is that there is a carryover effect of the realities and manifestations that are queued up. Unless you go through a very heavy clearing process, and even after the clearing process, there's a little bit of a lag time. And so as a result, the lag time still tries to attach reality layers to you that are outdated, that maybe you've actually outgrown, but you don't know that when they're coming to you, Because at first, all of the realities and all of the options look great. And if you are a yes person and are always signing up for things like myself, then you may be inclined to just try to say yes to everything. And I highly recommend that you don't do that, that you carve out the space to really wait, go inward, wait by yourself, for yourself, and really evaluate what is coming to you. This is where I'm at right now. So this is like a lesson that I'm working on. The more you say no, the more space you have for that which is trying to come to you that's a better match. And so, when in doubt, wait it out is a mantra that I've talked about before, that I strongly encourage you to use. That if you're a little unclear, if you're a little not certain, if it's not that full body yes, or if you don't have a deep knowing, or if your intuition is kind of like, not so sure about this one. Not sure where this is going. Do a quantum meditation. Go and assess the potentials that are active. I did that recently with somebody that I was working with, where I was like, not sure where this is going. So I went in and I looked at the potentials, and I could see that their higher self potential was actually still a version of hell. Like, I was like, oh my God, we're only going to get there? Jesus, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. Because like when people are in those hell-like consciousness states and sentience, like the things that they do, the behavior patterns that they feel are okay, are totally rational within that state of consciousness, right? It's like, it makes total sense to them because they don't ever know that there's another option and that there's higher lifelines because they can't perceive that. And so what they create and what they co-opt other people into has a rate limited effect. And it's like, oh, we're going to co-create, wait a second, another version of hell? No, thank you. Tapping out of that one. So, however, if you were to look at the mainstream ideas about how to conduct relationships or business or partnerships or collaborations, you might think, oh, well, I've got to stick it out. Or, oh, I should really take it because I'm in scarcity mindset and I don't know when the next thing is going to come. Or, oh, I could just try to force it. This is something I've done before too. It's okay. I can control it. I can force it to turn into, sometimes yes, but very often no. And even the times that you can do that, so much energy is wasted and you're not able to really find the right fit. This lesson was revealed to me in an incident when I was in LA, and I was very magnetic. And so I would just walk down the street and people would approach and I would get into conversation after conversation. And it was kind of fun because I was coming from a place where I was in isolation. And what I noticed is that the first people who would approach me would sort of clog up my orbit. And they were the ones that would talk to me in ways that I found to be abhorrent. Like the way they saw me, what they were projecting onto me was not what I was interested in or about. But it was like they were super aggressive with their approach because they were magnetized, and that was the behavior pattern that was active for them. When I am attracted, it means this, and then I behave in this way. And so I quickly realized that some of the conversations that I was having, I was like I met a porn star, and he was telling me all about his adventures. And for me, I was beyond that point of being attracted to the adult film industry. It was actually, and it still is, repellent to me. Like I find it just so much repellent. It's just so not me, right? And so what I found is that this took up 30 minutes of my time. I found the person to be interesting. I love talking to people. Anybody can approach me. Anybody, all walks of life. But what happens is that I had somebody else at one point that was trying to approach me that looked like a really decent, nice human being he looked like Clark Kent, And I don't have a thing for Superman. I didn't even think it was romantic, but he looked like he was more quiet and he was more a vibrational match for where I was at. And I really wanted to get to know him. And he tried to approach me 2 times in this little area. And both times my orbit was taken up by people that were not actual matches for me, even though they were interesting people. And this showed me the problem with just saying yes to everybody and having conversations. It's not like I was trying to be romantic with anybody at that point, but getting to know people is an opportunity cost. And the types of people that were approaching me for reasons and motivations that were not in alignment with what my goals were. And in the end, I never got that conversation with Clark Kent. And this is a really great allegory for why it's important, especially if you are in the process of doing shadow work and upgrading yourself. You're initially going to perhaps attract reality layers that are of the past, and you might tie yourself up time-wise, energy-wise, money-wise, going in directions that actually at the end of that road, if you were to do a quantum meditation and tap into the highest potential that lifeline is generating, then you might see that it's actually leading you to a dead end, or worse, another toxic round, or whatever it is. And so by being cognizant of where you're going and what is developing, and by saying no, you actually hold the space to allow for the perfect matches to come in. So listen, I am a reality shifting coach. And if you have that feeling that I was talking about, that like, I really need to work with her, it doesn't make sense, I just know that I need to, then feel free to reach out to me. We can have a conversation and figure out the timing. It may not be the right time right now, but we can at least start the conversation and start to feel that out. You can email me at sacredjourneyproductions@gmail.com. Okay, we'll talk soon.